Ja. jettison to a future where the place that I'm living in is something close to heaven, and no one I know has to work again. No sadness, don't have to play pretend. No false face just to keep the sorrow in. What a I've been feeling out of touch, been living my life on autopilot, haven't been doing much. Been a while since I tried to fly, I hope I'm up to snuff. Thought I might be nose diving, but my people come in clutch. Masters of their crafts and with the passions that they love, the world's eyes can finally open up and see the light that lives inside of them. Yeah. Cause we are the ones with the art touching your heart and soul. We are the ones encouraging your goals. Forever will we be in control of the art that starts the spark, lights up the dark. Remembering nights at the park when I was in such a hurry to get old. You know, won't stop till the gazillionaire. Most my memories are blurry, but some of them gold. I'm afraid of them fading, and I really hope they don't. I know that there's a time where everyone has got to go. But if I can, I'd really like to be the last step out of the door. Leaving everything behind seems like such a bore, and I don't believe that after this is too much in store. But if anyone out there is keeping score, you can go tell your God and fire will be my floor. However, I feel as though I can thrive whatever the weather. I'll endeavor these bonds, you know I'd never sever. And as long as my words can come through clear and clever, I promise to treasure every ledger where I can see cash filling up letters. But that could never measure up to the leisure, the leisure. Not having to be a damn people pleaser. Running my own show with those whose goals match my own. How high could we go? Just keep watching, Circle 31 is on a roll. Jettison to a future where the place that I'm living in is something close to heaven, and no one I know has to work again. No sadness, don't have to play pretend. No false face just to keep the sorrow in. What about my feelings, should I swallow them? Or wear on my sleeve constant thoughts of what I can and can't achieve. Future is bright but slightly out of focus, hoping I can keep it up, not be beholden to the thoughts inside of my head. Hold me back, and all the negativity was throwing me off track. But now that I've just jacked the vibe, seen inside my mind, clear enough to find sparks of creativity. I make my own design, start to realign the deformed version of the very angry person I once was. But I released all the hate and anger, and what's left is love, no regrets, lust and loads of sex. But I've passed all that, and the only one that gets my love next is me and one other. If I remain blessed, one head for all the rest of my nights on the chest. Killian. I look at life like it's a comedy, cause honestly, people commonly think that cosmically that there's one meaning for all, but now probably think there's only one path to follow. I find it comically absurd. Rethink your life, no hate if what you use works, but for others, no, your footsteps might be much worse. Don't worry about walking a mile in my shoes or vice versa. We might be able to fit each other's nights, but we have our own long nights, and what hurts us. And even if the shoes were switched and those shoes fit, life's just too different. Even if it's similar things we've seen. We can't trade up everywhere our cranium's been. So if you took my path, you might want to say it's soft as feathers. Or you may find yourself shattered, broken, and unable to be put back together. Same as the first verse with the vice versa. Take my advice or swerve, I'm not trying to hurt you. That's why I laugh, throw my head back and let my mind grasp that I'm alive. Even though I didn't ask, here I am, I guess it's fine. Either do my best or waste away and die. Guess I can try to survive, to thrive, to vibe to every song I make. Got a world to shake, I'm here whether I wanna be or not, and it won't be for naught. Don't get caught up in my wake. I suppose I'll save you from drowning for your sake, but don't expect to be able to have your cake and eat it too. You owe me, fool, for risking my neck and livelihood for you, not doing what you should have done. If there was a woulda, coulda situation, whose side are you on? You could have done more, you should have done less. You would have, but you weren't motivated by the stress. I took most of it away just to give you less, but now the marks on my body pressed. I'll always forgive, but I just can't forget. I believe I live in the ocean. I'm hoping that I can get the scratch to start it up so I can be going. Have a bunch of reasons in my head growing about how I believe my life should be led, and I can't wait to see it. All the seasons on the 7th season, ocean breezes always moving, never freezing. Day we're always seasoned, my whole crew is seasoned. You would not believe it, do not come at treason. You can't seem to reason off the plank is how you're leaving. I won't accept mutinies, come clapping at you, Captain. We can shoot the breeze. Differences, you've forgotten how to breathe, cause the shock to getting shocked has you sucking through your teeth. Baby boy still sucking on his mother's teeth. Toddler status just pissed herself, crying out for relief. I could give it to him, King Killian, handing out eternal sleep. Love the shock in people's eyes, I'm eating up the disbelief. Drop him in the ocean, Davy Jones locker, he can take a peek. Bring him back in 50 years, clean the barnacles from his teeth. Ask him how it was being tied to the deepest coral reef. Getting ripped up by things in the dark that he couldn't see. No adjusting to the light as there was none to be. At least not for humans. These sea creatures always hungry. Crazy sounds always thundering. Never know what's down here slumbering. Just a movement from these beasts sends you tumbling, fumbling, wondering, will I get out alive? Heart starts jumping, the pumping and thumping makes you show you're not gonna survive. This is your final dive. Do your best not to die, but your home is where you won't arrive. But your home is where you won't arrive. Screaming and thrashing, bones silently crashing, sand exploding, your body lies at the bottom of the ocean corroding, with your spirit seething about your body not breathing. Just wait and see me screaming right out on the ocean face, looking hella pleased, yelling to the wind that I will not be seized, and I could not be seized, and I will not be blocked by society trying to reel me in like I am property. I'll leave this world properly when my heart is dropping me right into the ocean where I fought so hard to be. Not to disregard those who gave me a shot. I love y'all in advance, cause my future is more than a chance. King Killian.
Where he comes from, he's a king.
So put some respect on what you say.
When he begins to spring into action, no one can stand in his way.
I'm hoping you notice when out my magnum opus, the focus is how much dope shit can come out of my throat before I'm croaking. How much weed can I get through my system before choking? How much massive energy can I pour into this engine? Power up those pistons, keep that machine whistling. Tie off a red ribbon, taking off, blowing up my main mission. And if someone who wants to stop me is listening, bring your aggravation, there better be no hesitation. The truth is, your retaliation is useless against me. For you see, I've rewired my
circuitry perfectly. So when someone comes up with a plan to murder me permanently, I have a counter for it with certainty. You should react hurriedly. I'd say in this state of worry be as my weapons move in a flurry of blows that show the strength of our wills and the distance of my goals is too far out of reach for you to grow, you know. And while I'm breaking limits, there's never any gimmicks, just getting better as we're counting down the minutes till you're gone. It's so perfect for you as curtains with the way your blood's spurting. I can tell your face is hurting, your imminent fate is lurking. Congratulations, you have now been promoted from knowing where you are for certain to missing person. You've been doing a little bit more than flirting with death. Your final breath will be spent learning the depth of your impact, or rather the lack. Your legacy will be one. I don't try to defend it. Stop pretending you're going on. You have met the end, I'll send it.
Oh shit. Hey y'all. Been feeling a little strange, you know. I've been feeling out of touch, been living my life on autopilot, haven't been doing much. Been a while since I tried to fly, I hope I'm up to snuff. Thought I might be nosediving, but my people come in clutch. Masters of their crafts and with the passions that they love, the world's eyes can finally open up and see the light that lives inside of them. Yeah. Cause we are the ones with the art touching your heart and soul. We are the ones encouraging your goals. Forever will we be in control of the art that starts the spark, lights up the dark. Remembering nights at the park when I was in such a hurry to get old. But you know, most my memories are blurry, but some of them gold. I'm afraid of them fading, and I really hope they don't. I know that there's a time where everyone has got to go. But if I can, I'd really like to be the last step out of the door, leaving everything behind. Seems like such a bore, and I don't believe that after this there's too much in store. But if anyone out there is keeping score, you can go tell your God and fire will be my floor. However, I feel as though I can thrive whatever the weather. I'll endeavor these bonds, you know I'd never sever. And as long as my words can come through clear and clever, I promise to treasure every ledger where I can see cash filling up letters. But that could never measure up to the leisure, the leisure, not having to be a damn people pleaser. Running my own show with those whose goals match my own. How high could we go? Just keep watching, Circle 31 is on a roll.
Wanna jettison to a future where the place that I'm living in is something close to heaven, and no one I know has to work again. No sadness, don't have to play pretend. No false face just to keep the sorrow in. What about my feelings? Should I swallow them? Or where am I my slave? Constant thoughts of what I can and can't achieve. Future is bright but slightly out of focus, hoping I can keep it up, not be beholden to the thoughts inside of my head. Hold me back, and all the negativity was throwing me off track. But now that I've just jacked the vibe, seen inside my mind, clear enough to find sparks of creativity. I make my own design, start to realign the deformed version of the very angry person I once was. But I released all the hate and anger, and what's left is love, no regrets. But I've passed all that, and the only one that gets my love next is me and one other. If I remain blessed, one head for all the rest of my nights on the chest. King Killian. look at life like it's a comedy, cause honestly, people commonly think that cosmically that there's one meaning for all, but now probably think there's only one path to follow. I find it comically absurd. Rethink your life, no hate if what you use works, but for others, no, your footsteps might be much worse. Don't worry about walking a mile in my shoes or vice versa. We might be able to fit each other's nights, but we have our own long nights and when it hurts us. And even if the shoes were switched and those shoes fit, life's just too different. Even if it's similar things we've seen, we can't trade up everywhere our cranium's been. So if you took my path, you might go on to say it's soft as feathers, or you may find yourself shattered, broken, and unable to be put back together. Same as the first verse with the vice versa. Take my advice or swerve, I'm not trying to hurt you. That's why I laugh, throw my head back and let my mind grasp that I'm alive. Even though I didn't ask, here I am, I guess it's fine. Either do my best or waste away and die. Guess I can try to survive, to thrive, to vibe to every song I make, got a world to shake. I'm here whether I wanna be or not, and it won't be for naught. Don't get caught up in my wake. I suppose I'll save you from drowning for your sake, but don't expect to be able to have your cake and eat it too. You owe me, fool, for risking my neck and livelihood for you, not doing what you should have done. If there was a woulda, coulda situation, whose side are you on? You could have done more, you should have done less. You would have, but you weren't motivated by the stress. I took most of it away just to give you less, but now the marks on my body pressed. I'll always forgive, but I just can't forget.
I believe I live in the ocean. I'm hoping that I can get the scratch to start it up so I can be going. Have a bunch of reasons in my head growing about how I believe my life should be led, and I can't wait to see it. All the seasons on the 7th season, ocean breezes always moving, never freezing. Day we're always seasoned. My whole crew is seasoned. You would not believe it. Do not come at treason. You can't seem to reason off the plank is how you're leaving. I won't accept mutinies. Come clapping at you, Captain. We can shoot the breeze. Differences, you've forgotten how to breathe. Cause the shock to getting shocked has you sucking through your teeth. Baby boy still sucking on his mother's teeth. Toddler status just pissed himself, crying out for relief. I could give it to him, King Killian, handing out eternal sleep. Love the shock in people's eyes, I'm eating up the disbelief. Drop him in the ocean, Davy Jones' locker, he can take a peek. Bring him back in 50 years, clean the barnacles from his teeth. Ask him how it was being tied to the deepest coral reef. Getting ripped up by things in the dark that he couldn't see. No adjusting to the light as there was none to be. At least not for humans. Sea creatures always hungry. Crazy sounds always thundering. Never know what's down here slumbering. Just a movement from these beasts sends you tumbling, fumbling, wondering, will I get out alive? Heart starts jumping, the pumping and thumping looks to show you're not gonna survive. This is your final dive. Do your best not to die, but your home is where you won't arrive. But your home is where you won't arrive. Screaming and thrashing, bones silently crashing, sand exploding, your body lies at the bottom of the ocean corroding, with your spirit seething about your body not breathing. Just wait and see me screaming right out on the ocean face, looking hella pleased, yelling to the wind that I will not be seized, and I cannot be seized, and I will not be blocked by society trying to reel me in like I am property. I leave this world properly when my heart is dropping me right into the ocean where I fought so hard to be. Not to disregard those who gave me a shot. I love y'all in advance, cause my future is more than a chance. King Killian. Where we
Hello, everyone. This is
Pangburn
us,
Hangout.
Pangburn Hangout. There we go. And we're here with Professor Noël Carroll. And of course, again, this is informal interview, so we can just relax and be chill about it. So to start off, why don't you introduce yourself, your history? I know that you're a philosopher and you're known for film and art and history. So, like, how did you get into that? What got you into this branch of philosophy specifically?
Okay. Well, my name is Noël Carroll. I teach philosophy at the Graduate Center of the City University of New York. I am a specialist in the philosophy of art. As How did I get into philosophy? I suppose I would have to say I got into philosophy as a kid because I went to Catholic school.
Okay.
And in Catholic school, especially in Catholic high school, I went to Archbishop Malloy in Flushing. In Catholic high school, you're taught apologetics, and apologetics isn't about apologizing for anything. It's about defending the faith against infidels and heretics.
Yes.
So we begin by going over Aquinas's 5 demonstrations for the existence of God, so by the time I went to university and I took my first philosophy courses, I felt completely at home because the first exercise there was, of course, to prove God's existence or prove God's existence. So I suppose I suppose in some ways I was destined to philosophy by being raised Catholic, and even when I decamped from Catholicism, the philosophy stayed with me.
How was that process, decamping from Catholicism? Because I share a very similar background. I was very heavily involved in Judaism, and my family, we immigrated from Israel, and I was super obsessed with proving the Torah and proving God's divinity and all that stuff. And the more I learned about it, the more I stepped away from that and myself found an interest in philosophy. So how was that like for you?
Well, I think my leaving, I left at a very specific time. I left at the a point where the Second Vatican meeting, ecumenical meeting, was occurring. That was under John the 23rd, Pope John the 23rd, and that was a kind of attempt. And a lot of people wouldn't think this is a neutral description, but that was about making the Catholic Church more like Protestantism.
Okay.
So we dropped Latin. The Mass was no longer said in Latin. The priest no longer had his back to us. We began to do all kinds of things, like at the end of Mass, turn around and shake hands with the person behind you. In any case, I think probably my first reaction and my first step to leaving the church had something to do with the fact of my not finding, in a way, the familiarity, the more everyday atmosphere that was being installed as appropriate. I mean, as strange as it sounds, I thought actually the older way was more in keeping with the theology. We said the Mass in Latin. I was an altar boy, so I would respond to the priest in Latin. The priest's back was to us, and we had a sense of a distance from God.
Yeah.
But God was not our friend.
A bit of deep
That-
personalization there, right?
the relationship that was not the relationship, and so that was a kind of blow. I felt strange, and then as I mentioned, I was I had gone to college, and I was no longer in a Catholic school, and so there was sex, and that was another that was another blow. Another blow to my religion.
Yeah, for sure.
And,
That will definitely do that.
yeah, then drugs and rock and roll came, and it was the 60s, and
Of course, of
Yes.
course. Everyone's favorite time period.
by then I was gone.
You were gone at that point. Too many temptations.
I think so.
So what is
What I did lose though was confession, which made things a lot easier.
I see. What is something that right now you're passionate about? What is, like, when you're studying, reading, where does your mind draw you? Like, what is your current passions in philosophy right now?
Well, right now I'm trying to finish a book this summer called Art and Morality. It's a commissioned book. It's being written for Blackwell's, and I hate to say, I mean, what I'm reading now is my own drafts. And
That's okay.
What I'm trying to do, of course, is to hone the arguments and the language in that book.
But what's the main idea of art and morality right now? What is it that you're exploring?
Well, actually, it's an overview. It's dealing more with the abstract issues. In other words, the chapters are not on, for example, canceling immoral artists. It's not an issue. That's not an issue, or artistic appropriation. It's much more about first taking an overview of what philosophers have said, both in favor and against of the relationship between art and morality. So one thing that any culture needs in order to reproduce itself is that each generation has to be taught how they should behave, what they should believe, and also what they feel. And so the way my text is organized is, first I talk about how art traditionally is associated with emotions and feelings.
Right.
And
right.
I first examine negative views of that. That is, views that suggest that by arousing the emotions, art harms society. So I start with someone like Plato and offer his arguments against especially the way that art leads people to identify with characters, because he feels that the problem there is that if people, especially students, impressionable students, identify with bad role models, they'll behave badly. And he has a whole battery of arguments to establish this. So, and then of course, there's a long tradition. We can call it because theater often becomes the example. We can call it the anti-theatrical prejudice. So Plato has followers in, for example, Saint Augustine, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Bertolt Brecht. All these people mount various arguments that advance suspicion of art, especially narrative arts and narrative fictions and theater, because they feel that by arousing the emotions in the way that art does is detrimental to society. So the first block of my book is about examining these arguments in some detail for the purpose of defanging them, so to speak.
Okay.
Defanging them. I like that. That's a good word. Defanging
Interesting.
them.
Interesting. So what do you think is it sounds like you were saying that you find those arguments okay, let me rephrase that. By defanging them, are you neutralizing them? Are you making them less scary, less potent? Is that what you mean to say?
No, more than that, I'm taking the teeth out entirely.
Okay.
And I'm trying to say that these arguments fail, especially the ones that are based on the notion of identification.
Okay.
And in their place, I try to offer my own theory of how art, especially the narrative arts, engage the emotions. See, as I said, in the Platonic line of attack, we hear like this very early theory of the relationship of art and emotions, and it's supposedly that of identification. I disagree with that for all kinds of reasons. I don't think it's the case that.
Well, what's one of the reasons? What's one of the reasons?
Well, look, here's one of the reasons. Just as an empirical matter, if you think about your own experience of artworks, you'll be struck by how often your emotions are not the same as the characters. Think of the beginning of Jaws. That young woman jumps into the surf and she's she's swimming in the warm water. It's probably one of the most pleasurable moments in her entire life. Of course, we hear dum 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 dum, and on the soundtrack there's this man-eating shark that's racing towards her. We feel fear for her. We feel high anxiety. She's in that warm water, free. She's just graduated. She's probably had some controlled substances with her friends.
Probably, just left Catholicism.
She's never felt better. So there's an asymmetry between our emotions and the character's emotions, and most of the time in narrative fictions, or at least a great deal of the time, we know a lot more than the characters know. That's why there's the possibility of suspense, and because of that, we have different emotions. Of course, sometimes the character knows more than we do. Sherlock Holmes always knows more than we do.
Yeah,
correct.
And that's why he's cool, and we're nervous.
Right.
So there's one kind of reason to say, look, empirically, identification, even if it happens sometimes, is not is not the only, and perhaps not even the dominant form of our relationship with
to art.
Well, or especially narrative fictions, yes. Also, pictorial art. When we see images that are depicting dramatic situations, the same kind of asymmetries can occur.
I was gonna say if you don't mind, Dandan, the asymmetry part that you mentioned, very interesting, the way that how art uses that in so many different ways. Asymmetry in film, asymmetry in pictorial paintings. That's
music.
That's a super interesting concept.
Yeah. So anyway, that's one kind of reason. I'll tell you, there's a more technical reason that's not empirical. That's a more philosophical reason, and that is emotions have, in the technical language, we say emotions have objects. Emotions are directed at things, so that you're afraid of the dog. So the object of your emotion is the dog. Now, if you think about it for a minute, when we're in relationship to a fictional character, for example. Say the fictional character is a mother whose son has just died.
Okay.
Okay. Well, the object of her emotion is her dead son, but that's not the object of our emotion. She's the object of our emotion. She's the object of our emotion because of the situation she's in. We feel pity for her.
Right.
She feel pity. She feels sorrow. So you see
Can we be the object? Can we ourselves be the object of the emotion?
can we be the object of an emotion? Well, not unless we're an artwork.
Right.
But
Okay.
but you're talking about in ordinary life. Can we be the object of?
Right. Well, you were just describing how, emotions are set to objects. I was
Yeah.
thinking, could we be the
Yeah.
object? I was just more of like a paradoxical.
Sure.
question.
No, but it's a fair question. So, sure, you can think of the last time you felt guilty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you talked about the identification and how that is not even like a primary, I don't know what the word to use, motif or thing in narrative film, that we don't really, that's not the thing driving us in the emotional landscape of our interaction with the film. I don't really have the words for it, but I hear a lot of contemporary arguments that is like the thing that people consistently focus on. How are people going to identify in the film if the person doesn't identify with them? What do you think about all of that in the way in which people speak about current films? And
Well, I think like when I present these arguments to you, I have a fairly specific notion of what I'm counting as identity or identification, namely that you're sharing the emotions with the character. Now, what you say is absolutely true. People are always talking about identification and identifying with characters. That's absolutely the case. But one thing you should notice is they use the word identification in lots of different ways, right? And sometimes they say they identify with a character. I identify with John Wick. I wish I was as strong and as possible and as invincible as he is. Right? He can get hit by a car 6 or 7 times in the same film and get up every time. Boy, do I wish I was like that. But now notice that now I'm not saying I'm like him. I'm saying I'd like to be like him.
okay.
Yeah. Is that the identification that you mean?
No, that's not the identification I mean, but that's one of the things that people mean when they say they identify with the character.
I see.
And sometimes they just mean, I wish I was like that character.
Right.
And sometimes what they mean is, I like that character. Or sometimes I mean, he's getting divorced, I got divorced.
Right.
We had some similar experience.
Some sympathetic resonance going on there, right?
Yeah, so that's right. And so we tend to think that, oh yes, this identification must really apply to a lot of cases. Well, actually, it seems to apply to a lot of cases because people mean different things. And when you add up all of the different things, you get a lot of cases. So my suggestion is, this is a kind of philosophical suggestion, is that we have to, as we say in the business, we have to regiment the concept. We have to make it precise, and I offer you a precise account of identification, because then we can talk about it and argue about it. I also try to a large extent to get rid of it, and I want to propose, and this is what I do in my book, an alternative way of describing what our typical relationship is, what our usual relationship is, in terms of the way our emotions are engaged. And again, the best example is narrative fictions.
Okay. Well, what is it?
Okay, now it has an odd name, so I'll give it to you in pieces and then try and break it down.
Mm-hmm.
It's called criterial prefocusing.
Criterial prefocusing.
Okay, so the first part is, let's talk about ordinary emotions. What do ordinary emotions do? Well, they focus our attention. That's one of their functions, right? That's probably their primary functions. They give us a bodily alert. Their bodily alarm systems that call our attention to certain things, that make us focus on certain things.
Okay.
What the things? The things that are of vital interest to human beings. The most obvious example is fear. Fear alerts us to danger. It focuses us on danger. You smell smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You pay attention to that, and then also the emotion of fear guides your behavior. So you seek out more information about that danger, like where it's coming from, so you can assess what to do, stand and deal with it, or just leave. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what one thing emotions do. They focus our attention on things that are vital to us in human life. Anger focuses our attentions on wrongs that are being done to us. Even jealousy has a function. It alerts us to the loss, the potential loss of affection. Affection that we think should be guided to us is going someplace else. Maybe to our elder sibling. So that's what the function of the emotions are in ordinary life.
Yeah.
And so they alert us to these situations, and the emotions have certain criteria of appropriateness. So fear is an emotional response to the perception of danger, right?
Okay.
If that's the criterion that a situation has to realize. Notice I said the perception of danger. So you may hear some noise in the bushes and stop and freeze because you perceive that might be an occasion of danger. If I'm afraid of a ravioli, on the other hand, and I have no reason to think that it's radioactive or it's been cooked by an alien from outer space, or
Right.
then that would be irrational, because I would be afraid of something that don't meet the criteria of the emotion.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have the idea that emotions have criteria, and in ordinary experience, the function of the emotions are to focus our attention on the kinds of particulars that meet that criteria.
Right.
But that's different than our experience of the emotions in artworks, narrative fictions, or paintings, or whatever. What's the difference? The difference is that the artist has pre-digested and pre-filtered and pre-arranged the situation so that the features of the situation that are relevant to that emotion stand out. In other words, they pre-focus the situation.
Okay, I see.
The emotions do that work for us in everyday life. In art, the artist actually pre-focuses everything.
Yeah, their intentionality sets off the spark of the art, right?
Yeah, well, so like yes, so if they wanted you to be afraid of the ravioli, they might show us the mad scientist cooking it up and making a speech over it, and
Yeah.
how,
Or they might show it moving by itself,
or they might show it moving by itself.
Mm.
All sorts of things, but they would arrange the situation. If it's a fiction, they would fictionally arrange the situation in such a way that it would trigger your response, because what's being put in your face, so to speak, is the situation that's been molded and selectively treated in such a way that the situation meets the criteria that's necessary. And if you think about it, that's what almost all the various devices of the artwork are involved. If we take movies as an example, if you're making a movie of the zombie apocalypse, then you're going to make sure that there are close-ups of the zombies deteriorating bodies. His eye popping out, his jaw falling off of his face.
Right.
All of those, we'll have some close-ups of those. So all the kinds of things that would cause disgust. I mean, that's one of the emotions that
Yeah.
you want to elicit if you're the same thing would be true, by the way, in literature. These are the features of the zombies that you would describe.
I see.
So
This is like all setting up the pre-focus, right? This is
yes, that's
So there's a criterion that they're pre-focusing on, and that's how they're specifically your emotions could be one area, your fears. Is this like?
But let me just finish.
Okay.
This is a much better explanation of most of the emotional engagement we have with art, especially narrative fictions, for example, than identification, because among other things, it enables you not only to explain your engagement with the human characters, but also with features of the environment, for example. So that when you I don't know why I'm so obsessed with horror stories with my examples today, but
That's all right.
but
That's an easy emotion to identify.
Horror films, it's always a dark, thunder and lightning, rainy night. In other words, it just puts you in the mood, because things are a little menacing already because of the way that the environment has been designed and framed.
Yeah.
I quickly just want to bring up, and this has come to my attention, because I don't have Zoom Pro. The meeting is going to end in like 7 minutes. So if that happens, I can just make a new link and we can all jump right back into it. I think that'd be the best way to go about it.
Wow.
That's fine with me.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out there. Where should I send that so you can get it, Noel?
Well, I think you have been sending it. It's the lowercase KNOLLCARRO.
Oh, that was way too fast for me. 1 second. Lowercase.
Lowercase KNOLL.
Yes.
CARROLL @gmail.com.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, all of the NOELs we used up by the time I got on email, so I went with KNOLL.
I see. So it's KNOLLEARROLL, right?
No, you had an E in there. It's KNOLL. Knoll, like the grassy knoll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then Carroll, CARROLL.
Oh, it's a C. CARRAOLL. Okay, perfect.
RROLL.
Perfect. Okay.
On the screen. Carroll.
Oh yeah, I'll send that to you. Okay, I got it. They wrote it down for me. Thank you so much, my dyslexic self. Well, so thinking about like this narrative and this emotion, what do you think has made the current? How does the current like Marvel franchise and Disney's franchise play into this criterion pre-focusing? Because it seems to just have been they just control the market in every single way. Because I find the films really poor personally, but
I enjoy them.
Well, look, I mean, it's this is also what would be an operation. What would be an operation if we were doing a romantic comedy? It's not only action and adventure or horror fictions that count. Detective, just go across the genre. It should count everywhere. Also, in terms of social justice films.
Yeah.
Films of political protests. So a film like Selma, of course, what they want to emphasize and what's criterially pre-focused is the brutality with which the black demonstrators are
Yeah, you're right.
So and that there, of course, the emotion that is being aimed at is righteous indignation. And so that has to be criterially pre-focused by.
I love that term, criterion pre-focused.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
That's what every artist is doing in their instantiation of their art, right? Is this criterion pre-focusing. I love that.
In terms of the emotional part, yes.
Right.
Yeah. Of course.
Well, isn't that all what cinematography is really about? Focusing the eye, developing a specific emotion by the angles and the color corrections and all that stuff, especially in narrative film.
Well, yes, it's about leading attention. Look, the filmmaker, of course, if we're talking about film or TV for that matter, it's in the filmmaker's interest to make sure that you're always looking at what he or she wants you to be looking at. Now, actually, though, sometimes the filmmaker may want to actually hide something from you, so that the camera is not on what you might want information about. For example, the murderer might be off screen. In a very early film that maybe you've seen, M with Peter Lorre, he plays a child killer, and for the first half of the film, you don't ever see him, but he whistles a tune in Home of the Mountain King.
Oh,
off screen, so you see a child and you see a shadow cast on the child, and off you hear this tune, and you know that he's present. Or sometimes, for example, in Halloween films, Michael Myers is in the background in soft focus, and you can hardly make him out. Because either to accentuate the audience anxiety or to surprise the audience, sometimes strategically, the artist doesn't want you to know something. So it's not always that the camera is where it would maximally have to be to give you all the information you want. Sometimes the camera will be in a place where you can't see.
Yeah, especially in horror films, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And this still validates the idea of criterion pre-focusing, where they're still doing the same thing, right?
Oh yes, because realize the pre-focusing isn't just simply a matter of seeing things. There's audio pre-focusing.
It's how it's all set up, right? Like it's an entire system of pre-focusing.
Yes.
It's
Yes,
pre-focusing the
the
emotions.
narrative structure itself is pre-focusing certain things.
Okay.
You don't see everything the character did. Be If the character's a policeman and it's going to be about a mystery the policeman has to solve, you don't see everything that he does or she does in the morning before she has to go to work. You just get enough to establish that he's a policeman, that he has a family, that he's going to work. The camera doesn't follow him on the commute into the office. The entire thing is shaped, and the same thing is true of the novel, right? You don't get everything. You only get what's relevant if it's a narrative to keep the story going.
We have less than a minute left, so I'm going to end the room and I'm going to send the link back and I'll post it on Discord for everyone else. So there it is. That was this is how it works, doesn't it? Let's see. Well, that was really... Oh, we're back. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, I can hear you. We can continue. Excellent.
Sure. So let me just say how this connects to morality,
Yes.
because that was where we started.
That was my next question, actually.
That was actually I was actually going to ask also how this ties into history and historical trends, but...
Well, and the way that it connects to morality is, of course, you want to engage among the emotions that an artist wants to engage are the moral emotions. Some emotions are obviously moral in their own right. Righteous indignation, and a number of other emotions have definite moral variance. For example, contempt, not only are there moral emotions, but the emotions serve morality in all kinds of different ways, as anger does. When we observe a moral infraction, anger helps shape our reaction to that. So then, getting back to criterial pre-focusing, well, the situations and the characters have to be criterially pre-focused to engage those moral emotions. I talked about the example of the movie Selma. What had to be criterially pre-focused were the kinds of things that are appropriate to criterial to emotions of righteous indignation, things injustice. So it has to be criterially pre-focused is the
feelings
of the situation. Also, what often needs to be criterially pre-focused in order to get us to ally to the right characters in a narrative is that they have to be shown to be on the morally right side of things. They have to be they have to be shown to be innocent. So in those westerns where the settlers all want to raise their sheep, but the cattle ranchers need the open range. So in things like Shane, for example, either the novel or the movie, the protagonist have to be shown to be
Morally righteous.
yeah, well, good, and also innocent. Not doing anything wrong. At the very least, they're not doing anything wrong. They're innocent, and also they'll be shown to be, hardworking, good folks, family folks, etc.
How much does film need to mirror the current, like, I guess, sentiments in society, and how much would you say film or art causes
Ethos.
or
I was just saying, you like the ethos. Is that what you're asking, Donna?
No, I'm just asking how does art in general, like, mirror these notions to criterion pre-focusing, right? I have this criterion: the sheep farmers are good, they're moral, they're righteous, and this is why we see them as good, or we set up the narrative. Versus how much does the film make people believe or change their opinion, or in a way influence society to believe that this is moral, this is good?
Well, there are different issues here. So let me start with the structure of the criterial pre-focusing. I think to a certain extent, whether we're talking about a film or a novel, the things that are being pre-focused have to be at a fairly general level. That is, if we're talking about any artist who's aiming at a fairly large potential audience, right? Then the morality that's being invoked has to be pretty general. And so the wrongs that people are suffering, the wrongs that the protagonists are suffering, have to be pretty recognizable.
To appeal to the most amount of people and their sentiments, right? Yeah,
and their sense of often it's a sense of fairness and fair treatment, and so those standards will be pretty. Those standards will be pretty general. Now, it is the case, though, that the next part of Dandan's question, it is that the case that there's going to be some reflection, even though the aim will be fairly generic. There is going to be some reflection of the ethos of the society,
right,
from which it comes. And then the third part of Dandan's question is the capacity of the work to change the ethos of a society.
Yes.
Probably the most famous example or that we have of that is the novel Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Oh yeah.
So that if you think that one way you can think of what Harriet Beecher Stowe task was in that work was to change the attitude that in general a white audience would have of the enslaved, and to make the white audience somehow think of them as different than savage brutes,
right,
or animals, chattel, right, and she used two two major strategies to do that. One that probably didn't work all around the world the way the novel did work, and which probably isn't as successful today. And of course, that was to emphasize that they were Christian.
Oh, I see.
And of course, Uncle Tom is pretty much a saint when it comes to his being a suffering servant. But the other strategy she used is still very powerful. And that is that she made a great point of emphasizing that what slavery did was to break families apart. Almost everyone that Uncle Tom meets, every other slave, has a story to tell about how he or she has been, torn away from their family. Uncle Tom, in the beginning, remember, he's being torn away from his family.
Mm-hmm.
And the other slave that's being sold at that point, the one who has to run across the ice floes in order to escape, she too is being divided from her family. It's like almost every slave that you meet and learn anything about has been wrested cruelly from his or her family. And so what's being criterially prefocused about slavery is this notion of the destruction of the family.
Of the family.
Which is a very Christian traditional ideal to begin with.
It is, but it's also an
Okay.
idea that people in India or
Anywhere around the world can understand.
Well, earlier you identified yourself as of Jewish descent.
Yeah.
It's certainly a very big deal.
Massive
Judaism.
deal. Yeah, massive deal.
So what she did was, among these other strategies, is to criterially prefocus the destruction of family circles. She appealed to this notion of the sanctity of the family, which was something that white audiences could ally themselves. So instead of framing the slaves under the concept of illiterate or brutal savages, they're framed as family people, members of families that have been torn apart.
Well, she did the right criterial pre-focusing then.
That's what she did. Yes.
So how does this?
What she had to do was move by the criterial pre-focusing, move so to speak, the objects from one category to another.
So we were talking earlier about defanging, and I couldn't help but think, because I'm actually working on a video myself about the effects that, at least the fear that the Dada movement put into the Weimar Republic in like the early 1920s. Are you aware of like Dada art or any of that period of time and art during that? How does that the fear of the art itself really have played into that time in history? If you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, I'm not sure I'm zeroing in on your question the right way, but I mean, one thing.
I'm trying to understand how the fear of art, because you said at the beginning of your book you're working on defanging those arguments. And I feel like those arguments were very strong in the minds of people during that time. They really took art as a way of shaping society in a really serious way, of how dangerous it is. And a lot of counter movements developed because of that fear.
Yes. Well, Dada certainly elicited a lot of anger. I'm not so much sure that it elicited fear. But let me say something about what I take to be going on with Dada, and then maybe in the back and forth we can
Sure.
get closer to what you're pointing to. Now, one thing that Dada is itself is a reaction to World War One, and the society that brought what to people at that time was thought of as the greatest catastrophe humanity had ever suffered. What Dada, one way of understanding Dada is as a reaction to the society that the Dadaists held was responsible for that disaster, and a rejection of all of what that society took to be correct and rational. And so Dada is among other things is kind of saying, well, if this is what rationality gets us, let's affirm irrationality.
Yeah.
And let's affirm irrationality in art. So instead of poets sitting down and sweating over getting just the right word, let's cut papers out. Let's cut words out of the newspaper, throw them into a top hat, and draw them out. And what we get is what we get. Right? Or think of other Dada performances or Dada objects. Man Ray made a Dada object, a very ingenious one, which was which you may have recall. It's an iron, the kind of iron you iron your pants with nails in the bottom of it. So of course it's an irrational instrument. If you try to iron your pants with that, the nails would go through the surface that they're on. So it was an object that was intentionally dysfunctional, that undercut its own rationale. So I mean, the Dada artists made things that affronted the practices of art in all sorts of different ways. So it caused a great anger. I don't know if it was exactly fear that it caused. Certainly that kind of anger could give rise to fear, but I mean, to me, what seems most pronounced about the reaction to it was anger rather than fear. When Duchamp's second painting of nude descending a staircase was shown at the Armory show in, I think, 1913. The critics in the newspaper said things like, "It's an explosion in a shingles factory." They tried to find kind of most disparaging and insulting things to say about it. And of course the things that would get said about that art and certain other kinds of art, abstract art that was emerging at that time. My child could do that.
Because I remember reading that there was a lot of sentiments, at least calling Dada art Bolshevism at the time.
That's interesting.
And they somehow connected.
The Bolsheviks were making art at that time, the art of constructivism. Which also was an attempt to mirror in art the aims and aspirations of the emerging communist society.
I guess the main reason why I bring it up is because, as someone who studies this and thinks about this, I do find similar I guess the word is motifs in modern culture about the way specific political figures or social figures call other forms of art as woke or as in a disparaging way, that it's kind of corrupting people. Do you have any thoughts on that or takes on that idea? Or do you see the parallel like I'm seeing it, or not really? Or am I completely off base?
Well, I think that the charges of woke. Now, as soon as we start talking about woke, somebody who disagrees with this is going to say, "Well, nobody knows what woke means."
Sure, yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't even know what woke means. I'm just saying what other people are saying.
Okay,
Yeah, people might categorize other people's art as woke, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think usually where that's being leveled, the charge is I actually think it's a charge that it's an accusation of there being a lack of artistry, of the artist, of the art having a political or an ideological message. Of course, let's just say that this is only applied where the message is what we would call a social justice message.
True. Yeah.
If it was an evangelical message, it wouldn't be called
called woke. It would just be called evangelical art or whatever it is. Yeah.
Right. But the woke art is art that would be aligned with certain ambitions of in favor of greater social justice, and it would be too. I think the charge is it's too blatant. The message is there, but it isn't worked into if it's a narrative, it's not worked into the art of the storytelling in a way that would engage the intellect and the emotions in any complex way.
I see.
It's like now some people are complaining about they're complaining as woke about works where it just seems that ethnically and racially mixed casting is involved. So that arbitrarily say various characters who maybe are of one gender are changed. They're gendered, so that suddenly it's the case that I don't know. I'm thinking of this because Glenda Jackson just died. A woman is playing King Lear, or Helen Mirren played Prospero in the Tempest. Now, there certainly are ways where the gender change can be interesting, but there are also ways where it just looks like it's just a matter of
speech.
Yeah, well, of changing the proportions so that this is an artistic breakthrough because now we have 12 Asian Americans in this cast, where it doesn't make
a real difference to the story.
Yes, there's nothing being made of the fact that the change, there's no addition to what's being expressed in the work. It's just very routine and maybe a little ham-fisted. So I think when people are complaining about woke, what they're saying is not that the problem is that the work is on the side of the angels, that the work is on the side of social justice, but that it's being done in a very mechanical, uncreative way that doesn't contribute to the artistic expressiveness of the work. That's what I think people are complaining about when they're saying things are woke. Of course, some people are complaining about things as woke just because they don't like it.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
goes without saying. It's just an
Yeah.
all-purpose insult. But where it's making something that's a claim that's artistically significant, I think it's being made saying that, you know, it's just obvious, it's forced, it's added on, and in a way the complaint is it's bad art. It's
Yeah.
not that morally bad, it's that it's bad art. And it lacks sophistication, it lacks nuance.
Right.
So how does one toe the fine line between criticism and an analysis of the art in this respect? Because you're talking about, it sounds like you're talking about woke as almost like a not necessarily a criticism, but an interpretation of this as forced, doesn't add to the story, rather than an idea of that's criticizing the art with its like aim or goal or whatever it might be. How do you toe the difference there?
Okay, well, look, first of all, the what a critic does involves a whole series of different kinds of operations. First, the critic describes the work, and then that description should actually support the analysis of the work, and then the analysis of the work should support the evaluation. So let's just look at those two last parts: the analysis,
Okay.
and the evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We can think of art as having, we can think of it in terms of two factors. A work of art has a purpose, or in some cases, several purposes. And some of these purposes are what I call constitutive purposes. What's a constitutive purpose? A constitutive purpose is is a purpose that makes the work the artwork it is. Okay, so what's the purpose of a Marvel movie? It's to make a lot of money.
Okay.
But that's not the constitutive purpose. That's not what makes it the artwork it is.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. I understand what you mean.
I'm
Yeah.
following
Okay,
you.
so okay, on the one hand, works have these constitutive purposes, and then they have there's the form of the work. And what is the form of the work? The form of the work are the choices that the artist makes that are intended to realize the constitutive purposes.
Mm. Okay.
So what an analysis does of a work of art is you attempt, if you're a critic, to determine what the constitutive purposes are, and then you try and see the ways in which the work itself, in terms of the choices that the artist has made, realizes or fails to realize those purposes. Okay, so
That's what I do with music. No.
Well,
I used to be a music reviewer and critic in the early late 2000s and early 2010s, and that exact thing crossed my mind when I was doing it.
yeah, no, I think that's, let's call it, that is the patent for criticism. So, you know, what you did as a music critic even before that was first you just described the work, and then on the basis of the description, you tried to figure out what the purpose was.
Yes.
Why was syncopation being used in this?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah. And okay, but then actually the analysis serves as a basis for the evaluation, because you can say, well, did these choices work? After all, we're talking about the what the intended purpose was.
Yes.
I can have a purpose. I can have a purpose to beat Michael Jordan on a one-on-one basketball game. That could be my purpose, but you know, I'm going to fail.
Right. What if
I believe you could do it only if you try hard enough.
Yeah. What if the
Let me just finish. So, but that's what the evaluation is, and you can see what you have to evaluate. There's the success of the artist's choices in realizing those purposes, and also you can ask a question about whether the purpose was worth it. You know, what
Right.
has it already been done? Is it unoriginal? Did you was it worth all the effort you put into it? Right.
Right.
Or was the purpose so low? So that's how the analysis serves as the grounds for the evaluation, and as I'm saying, I think that's a kind of what I would call a general pattern of what critics do across the arts. And
Yeah.
I also think, criticism, the bottom line of criticism is that you are supposed to come up with an evaluation. Academics may just in your class on the modern novel, they might just analyze the work but never say, and by the way, this is a great piece of work.
I see.
They might not do that because that it's just on the curriculum. They don't necessarily make those critical moves, or maybe they don't even care about them because they're just acting as historians. But if you're a critic, you're an evaluator. But if you're what I would call a serious critic, you just don't evaluate. You just don't go thumbs up or thumbs down. You give reasons, and
Yes.
Your reasons are connected to identifying the purposes, and then
the structure and the form of art and all that. You need. Yes, I agree.
Are there any critics that you like, that you follow, that you like? What they have to say.
Boy, that puts me in on.
Don't do that. Don't do that to him.
That gets me in trouble. Other critics that I like.
Maybe not. We don't have to give names, but
I mean, I would like to explore their thoughts and their feelings, or what they have to say, or if it's too taboo to be in your field to start calling people out.
No, it's not. It's not that it's too taboo. It's I'll tell you the critic that I most admired, and actually I think I've arrived at what my view of criticism is by looking at his criticism. Maybe you're all going to say that this is not disinterested on my part, because I'm going to take a critic who was also a philosopher.
Okay, perfect.
The critic I wish I could be is the late Arthur Danto. He died in 2016. He was the art. I'm sorry, 2013. He was the art critic for the journal that you probably both know, called The Nation. He was there. He was an art critic from about from the middle 80s until a couple of years before his death, and he was also a philosophy professor at Columbia.
Gotcha.
And if you look at his criticism with an eye to what I've just sketched, what he does is he tells you what the work is about, and then he tells you how the work did it. But there's one difference between Danto and I. Danto never thought that he claimed that he didn't evaluate things.
And you say that he did.
Well, I say that he did. I mean, he said he didn't evaluate things. It was up to the curators and the gallery owners. They put this stuff forward, and they said, this is good stuff. They're the evaluators. And
right.
His job, he was like Sergeant Friday in the old television program. Just the facts, man.
I see.
He would say, okay, this is it, and this is how it gets done. So he for example, has a brilliant uh, 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 piece of work on Myolin's Vietnam Monument in Washington. Maybe some of you have seen it.
I have.
It's a black slate with the names of all of the people who died in Vietnam. And for example, one thing he points out is when you look at it, and people do look at it, they look to see if they know any of the names. I know I did, and they're not now alphabetical order, so you have to go searching through it. I think they're in the order that the people died. Danto says, you notice when you do that, when you get close and you look, you see your own reflection. You see your own reflection in the surface, and that especially for someone of my generation, the '60s generation, makes you recall that you were part of this too.
I see. We are at the end of our time. We have about 6 minutes left.
Okay, so let me just finish the Danto discussion.
Yes,
Please do. Please do.
So yes, there's a critic I wish I was, and but there is a difference because he claimed that he didn't evaluate. Now I think that he did evaluate, and it's pretty easy to see how he evaluated. But he even evaluated in terms of the way he framed his criticism, because he said that the artwork embodies its content, and that's what I meant by saying realizes the purposes.
Okay.
But the way he put it was that what the artist does is find forms that are appropriate to the content. Now, finding a form that's appropriate to the content
Yeah.
is a way of saying it succeeded.
Exactly.
So,
It's saying it's good in other ways.
no, it made the right choices. It made good choices.
I see.
So I think even though he claimed he didn't evaluate, he did.
And one last thing before we have to end it out. What was the last good film or art that you think that you've seen that has really, you thought, just hits home and is just an absolute great piece of artwork, whether it be narrative film, book, story, something you think everyone should be watching because it's just so good. It exemplifies meeting that that you just realizes its purposes.
Okay, I'm in keeping with the fact that I've given you so many horror examples. I'm going to say, there's an Icelandic horror film called Lamb, and Lamb bah.
Yeah.
And it stars Naomi Rapace, who you may remember was the girl with the dragon tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to give you too many spoilers, but it certainly is the best horror film that I've seen in quite a while.
That's excellent.
It has a very, very slow beginning, so be nice.
Okay, no, I'm definitely gonna watch it tonight.
Be
So
patient. It's on Shudder.
Okay.
It's really quite good, and if you don't like it, get back to me and complain.
I will. I'll definitely will. Professor, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I had a very, very informative. I feel like I just sat through a lecture and I have to parse through everything I just learned. Most of my focus is in art, and I really appreciate you coming on and talking with us. I think Thomas appreciates that too.
I loved it.
Well, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. I want to quickly know, I am working on a video about art and art influence society. So if I can I just shoot you questions over email? Would you accept that? And maybe we can keep chatting, or
or talk on the telephone.
Exactly, something like that.
That might be easier. So you can just send me an email. I'll give you my telephone number.
Oh,
Perfect.
That's very kind of you.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that, because your mind is a trove to explore right now for me. So
well, I can't guarantee that I get back, especially if it's a complicated question.
Yeah.
It's likely to be put on the back burner.
That's fine. I know you're writing your book and
or
all that
taken
stuff.
off the oven altogether.
That's completely fine. That's completely fine. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate you. Is there anything you want to let the audience that's going to be watching this know, like what you're doing, or look something up about you, or?
Yeah, you can plug your book if you want to. I
Yeah.
think that'd be a good way to end.
Well, I haven't finished the Art and Morality book yet, but I do have a book that's coming out on June 30th.
Okay.
That probably no one can afford.
We have 1 minute and 30 seconds, so we got to finish this up before the Zoom closes.
Companion to the philosophies of painting and sculpture, and they're entries by 45 philosophers about different features of that.
Okay.
One book that I had that came out last year, though, that might be of general interest, is called Classics in the Western Philosophy of Art. And that's a discussion of nine philosophers from Plato to Tolstoy, and that everyone can afford, or almost everyone can afford.
There you go.
Go and buy it, everyone. Go and buy it.
We love you, man. Thank you, Noel.
Thank you so much, Noel. It was a pleasure coming on, and hopefully we can have you on again in a much better set with an upgraded Zoom, so we don't have to destroy it every time.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thanks
you so
a
much.
lot.
Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. Goodbye.
Bye.
That was absolutely fascinating. Very, 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 very fascinating. Yeah, and I'm definitely going to explore